Hello friends, this is Grandmaster Aleksandr Rakhmanov, and this video is about my participation in Champions Chess Tour, a tournament where it's possible to qualify to play against Magnus Carlsen and other strong players and also earn some decent money. This is a rapid tournament and it starts with a qualification tournament, so you need to qualify at the very least to 69. Would be better to qualify in something like 29, and the perfect result to qualify into top 11 if I'm not mistaken. And then there will be a second stage, some knockout matches, division 1, division 2, division 3. It's very complicated, so I'm not going to explain you all that. Just let's go to the games. Round 1 was nothing special, just a boring draw with black, but draw with black not a bad result. Let's go to the round 2. Round 2 I had white against a Grandmaster from Brazil. I started the game with c4, the Queen's Gambit, cd5, e5, bishop g5, Carlsbad system, just all the normal moves, a very typical setup. Knight goes to f3, bishop to d3, queen to c2, the bishop goes outside to g5, and this knight to c3. And next white would like to castle, then depends either minority attack on the queen side, or sometimes it is about castling short and then playing rook a e1 and knight e5, then f4, so playing in the center, or I would even say on the king side. While one more idea that there is here is castling long, a very aggressive and sharp play and attacking on the king side. So that's why my opponent played knight e4, bishop goes to f4. I don't really want to exchange too many pieces. Knight f6, just castles. And here knight c3 is definitely a mistake. Black should have played just something I thought about, bishop f5, just developing the bishop, and that's it. But knight c3, and now of course b takes c3 with the idea to push c4 on the very next move. So white is just better since all my pieces are well placed, like okay, most of them are well placed. So c5, of course c4, I'm ready to play in the center. So cd4, knight d4, very natural. dc4, bishop c4, also quite natural. The bishop on c4 is aiming at f7 and the king on g8, so the bishop on c4 is aligned against the king and gives us some tricky ideas. Bishop d6, and maybe the easiest way for me was just to take on d6, then playing rook d1, rook ac1, and that's it. But I thought that it might be not enough, so that's why I played queen b3 first, attacking the pawn on f7 using little trick, and for black is not that convenient to defend the pawn, so he played rook f8, bishop g5, keeping as many pieces on the board as possible. But however, sometimes I just recommend to you, to my students, just to exchange pieces, playing simple chess, and that's it. Like maybe if in this game I exchange it on d6, then it would be a different result and maybe I would win the game and the tournament went completely different. So h6, bishop h4, queen e7. Now it's about developing the rook, last piece development. Rook on f1 maybe not, let's say, perfectly developed, but still the rook on a1 is definitely the one that we need to develop. So rook d1, a6, and it's time. Everything is well placed for me. Rook e1 is hard to say if it is improvement or not, so that's why it's time to go forward, and I played f4. Also, just in case, covering all possible ideas of these, Also g5, I didn't really like that, like I wasn't sure about that. I thought it should be okay, but anyway, let's say bishop g3 takes fg3, so I didn't want to like f4. Bishop c5, king h1, just stepping away from this alignment on the diagonal. Yeah, by the way, any moment black plays at b5, then just bishop d5, so he played rook b8. By the way, here I only focused on the center and I slightly missed this. I saw that immediately after making my move that I could have played knight c6, but actually after bc6, queen b8, there is bishop g4. But even if not bishop, no, actually bishop g4 is the only. I don't really know if my opponent saw that. That's interesting. If he saw that or not. He's actually, probably he saw that because he spent 1 minute and 20 seconds on this position. So I played e4. Everything is ready. I go in the center. e5 is coming. So black is obliged to take on e4. And here, like I always say to all of you, to my students, that even if you, like, let's say you plan to do something, then take your time, look for other options, look for alternatives. And here, of course, when I was playing e4, my plan was to take on f6 and then attacking the king. And I didn't spend a second on moves like rook e1, which was the best move for white, because actually black queen is a little bit short on options. Yes, there is only, let's say, queen f4, simply bishop g3, taking the rook on b8. Queen h7 looks ugly. Yeah, bishop d3 and queen h8. And what is this queen? Yes, is it a queen or like who is that? So yeah, my plan was about bishop f6, and honestly saying, I haven't even considered rook e1, unfortunately. So queen e4, bishop takes f6, gf6, and initially I thought that I have several interesting options here, like bishop d5, just attacking the queen, but eventually I didn't like that because of queen h7. And I also was considering queen g3. This is what I played. So queen g6 is not an option because of queen g6. He should play king h8, and now bishop d3, a knight sacrifice. Black should take on d4. And here I thought that this position looks quite interesting and quite promising. But of course, as you can see, I was low on time. My opponent also was low on time. So here bishop b1, attacking the queen, kicking the queen away, queen b4, and queen h4. King g7. And of course, seeing that my opponent had just 4 seconds, I was only thinking about playing for a win. I, like, similarly with rook e1, like, honestly saying, I didn't think about like making a draw even like for 1 second. No, I didn't even have such a thought. I was only thinking, how do I checkmate the guy? And of course I could have just played queen g3, queen h4, repeating the moves, but I thought I should be winning. Unfortunately, it's not. After rook f3, which like rook f3, just rook g3, just checkmate is coming. Rook e8, by the way, the only move for black not to lose. And here I was low on time, so I played rook g3, king f8, then I played queen h6 check, king e7. And here I found some difficulties because surprisingly the king just escapes. Unfortunately, and surprisingly, it's absolutely nothing. I cannot attack anything. I also have no time, so the game ended just like this. And by the way, yes, funny. Here he could have checkmated me, but he missed this. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he thought bishop g3 was checkmate, but rook g3. And here I like had some hope, but anyway, it was the position was completely lost, so I lost. Very interesting game, very exciting game, and very sad that I lost this game because I think I played quite well till some moment. So just developing my pieces, then I go forward, everything what I teach you guys, right? So f4, then e4. Yes, I regret that I haven't even considered rook e1, because rook e1 like would be really nice. Queen h7, bishop d3, queen h8. Then maybe I can take on f6. Maybe I can play knight f5 and just playing with that queen being on h8 out of play. And I lost this game. Shit happens, what can I say? Let's go to round 3. Round 3 I was playing black against an international master. I don't really know him. So d4, knight f6, c4, d6. Of course you know this opening. This is what I play almost all the time when I need to play for a win against one d4. Knight f3, g6, knight c3, bishop f5, so controlling the e4 square, not giving white a chance to play the normal King's Indian. Queen b3, here there are two options, b6 and queen c8. I play queen c8, h3, bishop goes to g7, and the whole point of h3 is to play g4, but for some reason my opponent didn't do that. So just bishop f4, castles, e3, knight c6. Knight c6 probably not the best move, but okay. Bishop e2, rook e8 with the idea of playing e5. So that's why my opponent played d5. For a second I was considering e5, so counterattack in the center, but unfortunately after dc6, e takes f4, c takes b7, the game is lost for black, so simply knight d8. Knight d4, bishop d7, castles, and I wanted to play e5, but I have some I decided to play b6 in advance and e5 now. Of course white should take on e6, d6, and now pawn takes. Maybe knight e6 would be a normal move, but I wanted to play for a win. Yes, e5 is coming, bishop g3, e5, knight f3, a5, controlling the b4 square, since of course white would like to play b4, c5, somehow creating activity on the queen side. Rook c1, useless move I think, knight e6, the knight goes to c5, and thanks to the pawn on a5, I can easily do that. Knight d2, knight c5, queen d1. So probably moving away from bishop f5, the only point of queen d1 which I see. And here it was better for me to play bishop c6, placing the bishop on the long diagonal. And actually, like, yeah, why not? Why didn't I do that? The bishop on c6 is well placed, but bishop f5 is also okay, and overall black's position is absolutely fine. No problems at all, and I thought I'm gonna play maybe for a win, creating some activity on the king side. So knight d5, e4. So now I have the advanced e4 pawn, so I can play on the king side, as you may know. b3, h5, knight b1. So the knight goes to c3, so I decided to take on d5 myself, and after c d5 I played bishop b2, so forcing him to play rook c2. I thought it might be a small achievement for me, and bishop goes to e5. h4, I played queen d7, maybe not the best move, queen d7, knight c3, and queen g7. And why didn't I look at that pawn on that juicy pawn on h4? Why not to play bishop f6 with the idea of queen d8 and just taking the pawn? What white could do about that? Absolutely nothing, right? And even after queen d7, I still could have done that. Even here, I think I still could have done that. Just, okay, at least play bishop f6. Although, okay, wasting several tempi, but okay, why not? So rook e7, a3, rook f8, queen e5, b4, and unfortunately it's nothing for black on the king side, while white is white has achieved something on the queen side. So I played knight d3, takes, rook c8, attacking the knight, knight b5. The real problem for black is that my king is pretty bad. Like, my king is terrible. Yes, absolutely naked. While the white king is pretty safe. So that's why after queen d5, knight d4, queen d5 was about attacking the knight and taking the pawn, and I played rook c1 because I need to exchange either queens or rooks by any cost, because I cannot, with such a king, I cannot play this position with queens and rooks on the board. So rook c1, takes, queen f7, kind of aiming at f2 and securing my king. Queen e8 here, bishop d7, attacking the pawn on f2, f3, I cannot take because of bishop takes d3. So I played knight b4, knight c6, knight takes d4, queen e7, queen c7 pinning me, and like not a pleasant situation, king h6. And here I hope that like some ideas may be taken here or taken there, and eventually perpetual check. I mean, for example, in case of bishop b5, then maybe I take on e4. For example, queen d7, I take on d4. Then if king f1, then maybe giving some checks, or at least taking on h4, and then eventually exchanging queens would be good for me, just like white doesn't have enough material to play for a win. So in the end it was like this, queen f6. Probably not the best decision as I see it now. Just okay, play bishop e6, play bishop f7, and black is very safe, right? Since white's king is not that great, how white could play for a win, it's very hard. But after queen f6, I thought the endgame should be drawish, and according to the engine, it's drawish, but on seconds, it's hard to hold that. So eventually, and also it's because of my pawn on h5, which is fixed on the light square. So unfortunately, in the end, the king comes here, the king goes back, and I lost. This was my, unfortunately, the corner is around for the bishop, but unfortunately my king is too late to get there. So this was my second loss. Let's go to the round 4. I was playing against an international master. I had half a point out of 3, and I was playing white, so of course I was like, I'm gonna beat him. So knight f3, my stylish opening line, which gives me advantage all the time. So e4, knight d4, knight c6, e3, knight takes d4, e4, d5, d3 now, knight f6, knight c3, bishop f5. Like, okay, taking on e4 looks logical, knight e4, bishop d3, just developing my bishop. Yeah, here probably I spent time. I remember that I was really close to take the pawn on d5, but then I realized that after c6 there might be some serious difficulties for me, because after knight c3 there is bishop b4, then like queen a5 is coming, and I'm just not in time to develop. So I played bishop d3, c6, and here, no, okay, here I castled, bishop e7, and here I spent a lot of time. I spent 4 minutes. And this is one of my problems nowadays, and maybe like somebody of you who are watching this video, maybe you also have such a problem. And then my recommendation for you would be, of course, to get rid of that problem by any cost, even by cost like maybe losing like 10 games in a row, 20 games in a row, like take your time and lose your games and make mistakes, but play a little bit faster. So not like I do here. For example, this position is actually a good puzzle. So by the way, if any of you would like to make some training, you can pause this video and solve this position. You need to find the way for advantage for white. And I found that, and actually I got completely winning position. And so I don't really regret about wasting 4 minutes, because I thought it's like now or never. It should be something, because if it's if I allow black to castle, then the position is just quite symmetrical, boring, and not much to play. So I found queen f3, but as you can see, I left myself 3 minutes 29 seconds. So the point was, I'm attacking the knight. If knight takes e3, then I have I simply take on f5. If queen d7, then I just take on e4 and I win a pawn. So of course I thought that he's gonna play bishop g6, and then at the end of my calculation, in the end of those 4 minutes that I spent on queen f3, I found something. Knight e4, d4, bishop e4. And of course now if black castles, then simply bishop e3 or taken on g6 first. White is just a pawn up, a healthy extra pawn. Of course, some work to do, some serious work to do probably to convert that pawn, but still white is a pawn up. And of course I thought that he gonna take, his plan was to take on d4. And now one more puzzle for you. So it's important to consider all our forcing options. Bishop takes e6. And here I was like, okay, the game is done. How wrong was I? So bishop c6, if bc6, simply queen takes c6 and taking the rook on a8. So he played king f8, bishop b7, rook d8. Bishop d5, I played this quite fast. This is a good move, I like that. And after h5, I spent, I believe, okay, not too much, but I still spent some time. Rook d1, I spent 30 seconds. Like, why not? Like, play whatever. Black has nothing to do. Play rook e1, just develop your rook, and that's it. Or play bishop e3. Okay, don't be greedy. I wanted somehow to keep my 2 pawns all together, not ruining my pawn structure. Okay, like, who cares? It's 2 pawns in the end. Play bishop e3, take the pawn on a7. You still 2 pawns up. Don't be like too greedy, let's say. Yes. So rook d1, and here I spent like I spent 1 minute 30 seconds. Terrible. Of course, I think let's say I was for this tournament, I was not I haven't practiced enough before the tournament, so nowadays I'm just not in a great let's say playing shape. Not playing shape, but not enough practice. So practicing before the tournament, just weekly practicing some chess. That's why I was kind of slow. So I played queen f4, bishop f6. I decided to exchange the queens, but now there is, you see, some like small difficulties about developing my queen side. So I played rook e1, this, I played a4, okay. Now bishop e3 attacking the pawn, a5, and here it's stupid move, bishop f4, but you see I was already low on time, so this is something I don't recommend you to do. This is what I teach my students, but as you can see, I somehow, like, sometimes it's hard to follow my own recommendations, and this is one of my problems, but okay, this is something to fix somehow. Bishop f4, rook b2, bishop d6, c5, bishop d4. Here I was a little bit shocked because bishop f2 is coming. So I played some stupid moves, this, c6. Here I thought bishop e5 is a funny trick, because actually after rook f2, the rook on a1 is hanging. So c6 was just stupid. Okay, play king h1 at least. But overall, position doesn't look great anymore, right? So rook f2, but here bishop a1, and this, yeah, bishop b7, just rook d1, bishop e4, bishop c8, and the position is technically winning for black, so it's not much for us to look at. Just shame on me. What can I say? Like, okay, I lost third game in a row, and I lost, like, this game I was just, okay, completely winning, technically winning position. Just play with ease. Yes, don't don't overthink, don't complicate, just play and that's it. Round 5. I was playing black against a Grandmaster. So d4, knight f6, c4, d6. Once again, this system, knight f3, g6, g3, very solid setup by white. c6, castles, knight c3, bishop f5. So this is, we can say this is a starting position of this line. And white has some options, for example, rook e1, queen b3, knight h4, knight e1. Probably, yeah, knight g5 is also a common choice. So knight h4, bishop e6, d5, c d5, c d5, bishop d7, e4, knight a6, and bishop e3. So what is interesting about this position is that if this knight was somewhere on d4, then white would be clearly better. But since the knight on h4, the knight is actually like badly placed. And at some point white would have to play maybe knight f3, moving the knight away and improving his position. White has a space advantage, but actually sometimes space advantage is about, it's not really an advantage. Yeah, similarly, like the bishop pair is not always an advantage, right? It depends on some specific things, like here. The point is that black can easily play, for example, queen a5, rook c8, and this bishop is pretty good and organizing some play on the queen side, while it's not that clear what is white gonna do. So I played knight g4, I think a decent move, bishop d4, now we take queen b6. Exchanging the queens overall is like should be okay for black. For example, queen takes a b6, then rook c8, maybe b5, b4 at some point. So my opponent played queen d2. I think it was a right choice by him. I played rook c8. By the way, as you can see, as you can see here, after losing after losing 3 games in a row, I decided that, okay, like, why do I waste time? And mainly I lose because of having no time in the end. So let's play faster. And this is what I was doing. This move 15. But you can see this is like no change, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, right? And here finally I thought for 1 minute, no, not for 1 minute, for 30 seconds, and I was so disappointed with the move that I chose. I immediately I said to myself, what a stupid move I made. So here, just play anything. Just play anything. For example, like what? For example, okay, play knight e5. Knight e5 with the idea of knight c4, or just like make a waiting move. Maybe knight c7, knight b5. Yeah, because actually, let's say h3, knight e5. Yes, and always there is a threat of knight c4. But what I did, I played rook c4. I thought it's a good move. I'm gonna play rook c8. I have an idea of queen d4 or rook d4, but I didn't thought that actually I blocked the c4 square for my knight. And so after h3, I cannot play knight e5 anymore, because after knight e5, f4, rook d4, queen e3 or queen f2 is fine for black, but queen e2 is a problem because the knight is hanging. Knight c4 looks quite logical, but now this stupid knight from h4 finally getting back in the very right moment, and the rook on d4 is trapped. So I had no choice but playing knight f6, f4, and the position is still okay for me. What is interesting, rook c8, e5, but knight h5, king h2, and here the position is still okay for me. And I should have played rook d4, or maybe rook b4. But then what I thought, like, okay, I play queen d4, like offering him to exchange the queens, and then next move I'm gonna play knight b4 or something like that. After queen e2, I realized that it's like, once again, it was some stupid decision, because next move white is gonna play rook d1, just attacking my queen, and that's it. So I played bishop e8, at least moving the bishop away from e6, but it was so much wrong. So bishop e8, rook d1 attacking my queen, queen b6, and baba. Here I was shocked. I was shocked because it's like third time in the game when I thought, like, how stupid was I about playing rook c4 occupying the c4 square, about playing queen d4 just wasting my time for nothing, about playing bishop e8 moving the bishop away from controlling the f5 square. It's nothing good for me here, because knight e7 is a threat, e takes d6 is the threat, followed by knight e7, and I have nothing to do about that. King f8 just taken here, gf5, queen h5, queen b2. I decided, like, okay, maybe somehow distracting him, queen g5, and here I made a mistake. I should have played king h8, queen e7, and king g8, and actually with some chances to survive, because this knight is not that great, yes, and unfortunately for white, the knight doesn't have a good square to go to. If knight b1, then some activity, rook c2, and we play. But after king f8, surprisingly, boom, queen f5. Here I, like, this was 1, 2, 3, 4. This was fourth time when I regret about my previous move. Because now if I play king g8, then queen g5 check, and it's nothing great. At some point it's just gonna be knight e4. While taking on c3, this is what I did, but okay, anyway, I didn't have anything else to do. So queen takes e3, but after queen h7, queen h8 is checkmate, so the only move for me is e6. Now just taking on e6. Also some ideas of taking here, taking there, knight c5. Like, okay, here the position is just completely lost for black, so it's just anything is winning for white. And here I also saw this move, nice, d7. Rook e1 was also winning, I guess. Anything is winning, yeah. Queen h4, queen f8, queen h6, whatever. So d7. If queen takes h8, then d takes c8 queen. If like bishop takes d7, then rook e1 now. If knight d7, then still rook e1. So I played knight d7, this, and I resigned. After this loss, I still thought that I have some chances if I win 4 games in a row. So I won 1 game, and then like in the next game, I got a very good position, but I blundered something and the game ended in a draw. And then I lost 1 more game, also blundering something. Of course, losing 4 games in a row is not a great experience, but it depends how you react to that. I remember when I was young and I went to one of my first tournaments in another city, maybe when I was something like 11, um, and I started the tournament with like 0 0 0 0, so I'm losing 4 in a row. Then eventually I scored maybe 2.5 out of 9. Then it was also one case, Russian Championship, Junior Championship under 20. And I believe I was a little bit younger, maybe I was 17 or 18. And the tournament was pretty strong, some 2,700 players. I mean, nowadays they have 2,700. At that moment, they were maybe 25, 2,600. And I also started with losing 4 games in a row. Then eventually I scored maybe 3.5 out of 11. Things like this can make you quit chess, or they can make you stronger. Like, I got angry, I got mad, and of course I want to strike back, and I will prepare for the tournament in September, and I will show them who I am.